Welcome to the Visitation. It's good to have you here. This is where we share honest and vulnerable moments of marriage and family life. It's good to be here. I'm Mary Beth Eberhard, and I'm here today with my good friend Lisa Iglesias.
Hey.
And today we're going to be talking about communication in marriage and family life.
Okay, yes.
So I was thinking, friend.
Yes.
I was thinking about all the years of marriage that we have together. I have 24. How many do you have?
We're 29.
Are you at 29?
Yeah.
I remember being at your 20th.
Yeah.
Was it your 20th?
I can't remember, but it was a nice
It was beautiful.
gathering.
It was a gathering. It was just beautiful. But the wisdom and the experiences and the suffering, all of that wrapped into those years of marriage in the realm of communication. How do we carry through and continue on in our marriage in grace, in charity, in love, and laughter, and what that all looks like?
Yeah, I think that is awesome that we, dig into this right here, because I think it can start from the beginning of the day and those little early moments where it's not my best moments of every day. And then the little bit by little bit that happens, it can even be the communication, a certain look, and maybe early in marriage, I definitely didn't have the courage or understand, like, maybe I should bring that up. Like, maybe he doesn't realize that particular raise of the eyebrow actually looks more like, are you crazy? Are you insane? And he's just going, huh? And honestly, it's a question that I posed to him actually this year of marriage, of like, hey, like when you make that face when I say the thing, and I got this clarity, and I'm like, why didn't I ask that back in 1992?
But it's beautiful marriage-wise now when I make a face, and Ryan, my husband, will say, like, what are you saying with that face? And I think, oh, I'm not saying anything. Like, what do you mean? I didn't make a face. Yes, you did. You did make a face.
Yeah.
And so for communication within marriage, it stems for us in our family and our marriage with a desire for the good of the other and the good of our marriage. There's a humility that's really necessary. There's a desire for our marriage to be the best version of Jesus within us. Mm. And what that looks like is an offering. It's a daily offering. It's a moment by moment offering all the time. And I like what you said, because you said it starts from the beginning of the day. And I think that we can communicate in our marriage with gestures and with like you said, looks, acts of service, little notes, all types of things. But it needs to be a conscious effort. Mm-hmm. It doesn't just happen.
I think I know that I've gotten caught up with, maybe as small as focusing on like the date on the weekend, and like thinking about, are we going to, go somewhere to eat? Are we going to just, go walk around somewhere? Like, what is our date going to be about? And focusing on that, like, that's going to be nice time for communication. That's going to be nice time of togetherness. But then I could kind of like steamroll through that week, being a bit of a grump maybe, and not, sharing whatever I'm, trying to wrestle with within me and my own mind and heart, where I could just, very simply just kind of bounce something off of my husband and kind of get like maybe a little more clarity on something little. Honestly, in my life, everything is little. All the little things that are in a very simple, teeny life. But they do all add up, I think, is definitely into this not problem of communication, but this challenge of communication of exactly what you just said. This picture of marriage, of this unity with the Lord, with His love and what it is actually like and what it's all about, and it's like depicted in marriage. Okay, I love that you said that, and I love that you've always known that, But I only learned that like a handful of years ago. I never considered that, and it totally elevated the concept of marriage for me. Like that I could be playing any kind of role in maybe what and how the Lord wants to love, definitely my husband, but in this world, just that through marriage and through, so the communication is so important, because how many times do we pray or ask the Lord for, help me with this or help me to understand that. And then maybe I rush off and, okay, yeah, so I threw out that prayer, but maybe I didn't stop and listen, and maybe I didn't wait. Maybe I just moved in my own direction, and that with maybe practicing that in marriage, I could grow in that area with him and really, do that hearing, doing that listening. So it is all woven in between. But yes, so so like rubber meets the road. Like I used to say, like I stopped myself, but I was just going to go down the road of early in the morning is just not my best time, and stop right there. But the Lord has pushed me through that. Like, no, that's not acceptable. I'm not super grumpy towards my kids when I wake up. I will give them a nod. If I'm not quite ready to speak, I'll give them a nod. I'll give them a little grin, pat them on the shoulder. Mom's going towards the coffee pot, but towards my husband, maybe just a head tip, like, you're there, you exist, but that's not okay.
Right.
And that's where it kind of sets the tone for the day. So the Lord has been pushing me into like, take a look at that. Look in the mirror as you pass by on your way to the kitchen. What does your face look like? Mm-hmm. And when I consciously, like, it's not a big effort, but if I consciously it happened this morning. I just gave him the biggest smile. We were both getting ready to go, which usually I'm home. So I'm not, me getting ready to go is like, wow, you're getting ready to go? Where are you going to go? And so, and I just smiled at him, and he went off a different way. He went out the door. Lighter. I don't know. He did. He looked like he was going to go, the day, or we're going to seize the day. Like I didn't do much.
I love that notion of, have you seen the picture? We've talked about it before, where you have the husband and the wife. I think they're just getting married, and their hands are on the crucifix. And that recognition that within every moment of marriage, Jesus is right there, right? And guiding that communication. And the little moments are so important. When my kids come down the stairs, I make a conscious effort to look up and gaze upon them every morning.
Exactly.
Like open my arms, welcome. And very similarly, when my husband and I wake up, sometimes it's like, big stretch, and then it's, hey, what's your day look like?
Yeah.
And it's the task and what comes next and what are we going to do together, but it's the task, right? Versus the joy and the recognition. I think communication starts with the recognition that you're doing this together, inviting Jesus in to those moments, and being active all the time. I once heard someone say that recognizing that your other half has had a harder day than you have is such a blessing to a marriage. And I will admit, there are moments where I am thinking, there's no way, way that you can have the better day or the harder day, right?
Yeah.
And even wearing that, like you put on that cloak, it's a heavy cloak, man. Oh, yeah. And then what does that do, right? And he comes home from work and you're like, you might as well like throw flour on your face and like a sack upon you and put some drops of water to add some sweat to it. Yeah. But if, we just brighten our face, even if we are covered in whatever we are covered in, it's a recognition, so that, and that's how Christ gazes upon us.
Yep.
Always, right?
I love that. Yep.
And then, so that's like the easy stuff. But, some of our listeners might be thinking, okay, that's sweet and cute. But, we have hard moments in our marriage. Exactly. And what does that look like? How do you get through those? Yeah. And I think there is a sacramental grace that needs to be recognized, that, when you jointly before the priest, said your vows, there's a grace that's given to you, and it's a well, and it's deep, and you can draw from it. And the charity that comes from that, and the mercy that comes in those moments, it's real. It doesn't mean that you're not hurting, but communication, effective communication, has to start with charity, a deep breath.
Absolutely.
And charity.
I think that exactly what you just said, I just want to lean into that a little more. So, when the Lord, not just when we walk out of a confession all bright and shiny, but the Lord looks on us moment to moment with that gaze that both of us have mentioned, of seeing our children wake up in the morning, like, oh, my gifts of God, there you are. Like,
Right.
that's not what I say, but inside my heart's like, oh, look at them. They're just, wow, So, but my husband is too. My husband is a gift from God. And so what's really helped me, especially moving into what I'm so glad we're going to talk about, these harder conversations, is to think about him. How did I see him? What was he like? What was I like? Think about our early dating and how, honestly, my feet, just like everybody, I felt like many times my feet weren't touching the ground. Like
Right.
wow. And just to think about it now, I'm just like grinning like a silly 19-year-old. But like, I'm just like, it helps me to realize, especially in those hard moments, that's actually who he still is. If I still want him to think of me as like that, and I want to think of him like that too. Yes, we're older, grayer, a little heavier, a little slower, but, and that really helps. So here we come into this hard conversation where it's like one of those moments like, what? You think what? Like, I thought we were on the same page with this. To stop and go, hang on. Okay. We've got all these different experiences. We're coming, into this hard conversation, but this is not a stranger. This is my, my sweetheart. And how would I speak to him? Like, just like a hard conversation with your kids. Sometimes we got to get firm with our kids, but we come at it, most of the time, I come at it with charity and mercy.
Yeah. No, I think that recognizing, I always say to my kids, who do you know me to be? And with my husband, I have to challenge myself because, man, feelings get hurt. I mean, emotion is raw. We're human. But to say to myself, stop. Who do you know him to be? And to look for Jesus in his heart, and to step back. That gives me pause.
Yeah.
And it can wipe away. That. This is Mary Beth Eberhard, and I'm here with Lisa Iglesias, and we are talking about communication today. So, Lisa, you were just mentioning the glimpses of Jesus in your husband and in the gifts of your children, how you can gaze upon your children with that love, and in challenging moments, bringing that gaze right back to your husband. Challenging moments bring out the worst of us, and I want to challenge myself to bring out the best of me in those moments, especially going forward in these next years of my marriage. I'm at 24 years, and it seems like a long time, but I'm hoping, I'm betting on, 24 plus
there
more.
You go. Yeah, absolutely.
And I want to bring the best of me to those.
Mm-hmm. So I was thinking about like really kind of try to stick myself into one of those, and I try to forget them because they're hurtful, right? They're not enjoyable to remember, those hard conversations, but may or may not have had one, last week, so I can remember. And one of the things I had to do, and it's just like all the things, like we hear it all, right? We're all trying to better ourselves and everything, and our mind, our physical body, our spiritual. So, we hear the analogies all the time, right? About exercise, that if you exercise a muscle or if you stretch, well, then say you slip and fall, you will have been stretched out over the last few months, right? And maybe you'll get a bruise, maybe not break something on the way down. Okay. And then like muscles, like you have to exercise to get stronger. Well, or a technique, like with chefs chopping food, like they're super fast. How do they do that? Oh, because they do it all the time. They're, really good at that. It's not even think about it, whatever. Also, that we practice well these kind of situations, not going over them, reliving them in our heart or whatever. That's not healthy either. But to exercise the ability to go somewhere when your brain just doesn't want to. So in that hard conversation, I instantly get defensive. I'm sure I'm the only one, but I go very instantly defensive. I just throw up this wall of like, oh, you're not going to hurt me. And none of these, anyway, so probably old things, right? Childhood things that just they pop up as soon as you're misunderstood or whatever. And so right away, my new thing I'm trying to do is in that moment to realize there's two here. I have brought something to this. Either I have said something, that's been misunderstood. I have been confusing in the way I explain something, or I have been impatient, or I have said the correction to the child 4 times and it's too many, and he's kind of like asking me to stand down, and I'm like, no, I'm going to stand my ground. But so that's one of the first things is to think, oh, I'm not a necessary victim at this moment. Don't need to be in self-defense mode. Actually, I'm also part of this. What did I bring to this? Mm-hmm. So my comments are usually kind of like, okay, what I understood was kind of like this. How did you take that? I can see that it, and it doesn't always come out smooth or graceful, but I really need to own the fact that I'm part of the confusion.
Your husband has a great phrase that he's taught over the years. Deacon Doug, he has said, what did you hear me say? And I see you roll your eyes because it's both good and also you've lived 29 years of what did you hear me say? But it's so good. I mean, it's great with my children, but even so, recognizing that what sometimes I mean to say, how that's received comes with a great deal of emotion behind it. So pausing and just actively saying, this is the nitty gritty practical of communication, but what did you just hear me say? Say it back to me. I really want to know.
Right. And the converse where he'll also say, what I heard you say was this. And it is always in left field. It's always like, wow, with all of this emotion or all that I'm thinking of, I have totally gone onto another planet with my explanation or my feelings about it or whatever. And so that helps too. Like when he'll say either way, it's what did you hear me say? Or okay, now what I heard was, and it always gets twisted into our own insecurities. Anyway, mine. What I heard you say was, you don't trust the fact that I can make a good decision about this. And he's like, whoa, we were just talking about colors of a bedspread, actually.
Exactly.
Whoa. And isn't that like the mind of a man and a woman?
Mm-hmm.
Anyway,
what would you say are practical things that you implement in your marriage that keep communication effective, alive? When communication is exercised, as you said, what happens is that there's less flare-ups.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So what do you guys do? What have you done? And often we do things, right? And then that kind of fades away like an exercise routine, right? But some of them actually worked well, but they just kind of drop off. So what have you done?
Yes, I think you're 100% on the right direction. And I think that I'm hungry to know those things too. Mm-hmm. And so one of the most recent ones, we realized that we were you mentioned it earlier, working. There's stuff to do for the children. There's stuff to do for the house. There's stuff to do for work. And then you kind of like, your conversations are about the work. Mm-hmm. How are we going to get the work? Even if you go out and you're still talking about how we're going to manage this. And so in the beautiful morning of summer, there was time and light and no ice to walk around in our path in the neighborhood. And so we would take half an hour and walk. Sometimes we'd stretch it out.
Isn't it crazy? A half hour.
And half an hour. And so we talk about no agenda, just talk about nothing. And I felt so connected to him. And it really wasn't much. It was just talking with my best friend and the love of my life. But we weren't like talking about, oh, aren't you just my best friend? The love. No, we weren't doing that. We were just chatting on, oh my gosh, look at that tree. Oh my gosh, it's so beautiful. Look at the blooms there. Da, da, da. And then quiet. And then just talking and, oh, what, anything. What did you read? What is new that you know? What is, and now I have seen kind of not a disconnect, but like I miss that because now I will not go walking at 32 degrees. I'm sorry. I've got to get maybe some warm gloves or something and do that again, but it's dark. But anyway, I'll have to have a winter routine.
Right. And I think seasonal routines are important. We take walks and we find that effective. But we also, we have not daily, that would be crazy. We have weekly check-ins. So because there is the communication as far as a couple in marriage and all the emotion that goes in that. But the longer you're married, you're running a ship.
Oh,
so
yeah.
that type of stuff has to be talked about, right? And if I have found that if it's talked on the fly, it's not as organized and it's quick to pass through. Like, what do you mean? I told you about so-and-so's basketball practice when
Exactly.
you were heating up your cup of coffee.
Exactly.
And so a structured time has been really effective for us. We have a shared family calendar. And so it's like, put it on the calendar, put it on the calendar. And that involves, all the activities, but it also, schedule in a date night and stick to it. I try to really advocate for Ryan to have a guy night at least once a month, because how he communicates with his guys is different than how he communicates with me, and he needs that guy time.
I think they do.
Right.
And I really love it. I know that there's a lot of parishes that have that man as you.
Mm-hmm.
I think they, rightly so, they dig into scripture, they dig into the lesson. I'm not exactly sure how it goes, but I think it's like that. And I think at the beginning, like when they're gathering for like a muffin or whatever, they have some conversation, but I don't know. Is that, I wish for them to have more time.
Right. So when Ryan goes out with his guy time, he'll often, it'll be active. So I think there's that recognition that for a man, often that communication comes with like, we're going to go hike.
Yep.
And they're going to talk. And man, they've hiked like long time. And often someplace that like they like to go off the path. And, there's something to that. And similarly with women, like we need that communication as well. And there's an unloading of that. Like you come back to your marriage lighter and refreshed, especially if you challenge yourself to be part of a group. You have a group of friends that chooses to gather in charity and to lift each other up versus like, let's all get together and complain about, this event or that, like how destructive. I've had those moments, those
Correct.
friends,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
like that's just, it's like bitterness incarnate. And I say no to that. And I know you do, which is why our foundation, like our
Yes.
friendship is so beautiful. But, as we move to communicate more effectively, the takeaway from our conversation is really, those structured moments of time together, the logistics, maybe we call those logistical conversations. And then the tender, you need those tender moments. And then I think you said, the recognition that Jesus is there. How did you word that? Like as we wrap up.
I don't know. I'm pretty sure I was rephrasing something you said, but I was just sitting here thinking so we've come up with like an acronym then, TLC. You've got the tender moments and the logistic communication.
I love that.
Practice your TLC with your beloved.
I think that's fantastic. So I think we should just take a moment right here and thank the Lord. How blessed we are to just gather in this space and be together. Thank you. Thank you, Jesus. Thank you for sharing time with us here on the Visitation, and we look forward to gathering with you again.